Possible end of the HISD state takeover. I'm Ernie Manouse.
And I'm Tessa. How worried should Texans be about a drug-resistant fungus spreading through hospitals and care facilities, and what's driving the rise in our area?
Plus, think you have a black thumb? Jemine Oakes of the Flora Culture says the right plant and a few simple habits can change everything.
And as always, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Go to houstonpublicmedia.org and click the purple box.
All that and more right here on Hello Houston after the news from NPR and News 88.7.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A consortium of states is taking Meta to court in California today in a landmark case. They accuse the tech giant of designing its social media platforms, including Instagram and Facebook, in a way that can get children and teenagers addicted. Here's NPR's John Ruwich.
California, Colorado, Kentucky, and New Jersey are leading the case. They say features like infinite scroll and the like button were designed to keep people on Facebook and Instagram longer, and knew but did not admit publicly that they helped hook kids. The states also say Meta broke a federal online child protection law by collecting data on kids under 13 without parental consent. Meta denies the allegations and says it's put in place a number of features to make its products safe for minors. Some legal experts compare the case and a string of similar ones to trials in the 90s against tobacco companies that led to big penalties and changed the public narrative around cigarettes. The Chan Zuckerberg Initiative is a financial supporter of NPR. John Ruwich, NPR News.
Disney is suing the Federal Communications Commission in defense of its ABC stations. The Walt Disney Company accuses the administration of violating its First Amendment rights by carrying out an early license review of 8 ABC stations and investigating the talk show The View. FCC Chief Brendan Carr, who launched the formal review years ahead of schedule, has said he is upholding requirements that broadcasters operate in the public interest. Alaska is one of 3 states holding primary contests today. One includes a race between candidates who share the same name, Dan Sullivan. Alaska Public Media's Eric Stone has details.
Alaska's Senate race has been the subject of millions in campaign spending and could decide control of the chamber. 2-term Republican Senator Dan Sullivan is facing off against Democrat Mary Peltola. They are all but guaranteed to take the top 2 spots in Alaska's nonpartisan top 4 primary ahead of the ranked choice general election in November. But the race for the 3rd and 4th spots is murkier. Ahead of the primary, super PACs on both sides have spent millions to elevate marginal candidates. The race also features a teacher who shares the incumbent Sullivan's first and last name, a move some Republicans, including President Trump, say was meant to confuse voters. Voters will also narrow a 17-candidate field in the race to be Alaska's next governor. For NPR News, I'm Eric Stone in Juneau.
If the severe floods in Indiana and Ohio over the last week are any indication, extreme rainfall is happening more often in the Midwest. NPR's Lauren Summer reports.
Storms in the Midwest are getting stormier, you could say. The most extreme storms in the Great Lakes region are now dropping 45% more rain than they did back in the 1950s, according to the National Climate Assessment. That's due in large part because of climate change. A warmer atmosphere can hold more water vapor, which leads to more rainfall when big storms hit. That trend is expected to continue as the climate keeps warming. The federal government is now updating rainfall records nationwide.
That's NPR's Lauren Summer reporting. You're listening to NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Shelby Rose. Schools are remaining vigilant at the start of the year as the FBI has released its first threat analysis. According to the Bureau, there have been multiple credible threats to start the year that have resulted in arrests. Last week, 3 teenagers were taken into custody, charged with a third-degree felony for allegedly planning a mass shooting at a Pasadena area high school. In total, FBI Houston says they've received 42 tips related to school threats. Houston Mayor John Whitmire is responding after Governor Greg Abbott threatened to pull state support from George Bush Intercontinental Airport over the airport's Muslim prayer room. Our Matt Harrop reports.
This is all centered around the airport's ablution room. Since 2024, anyone has been welcome to use the foot washing station and prayer room in Terminal D. Governor Abbott now claims it's illegal religious favoritism, though, arguing it could violate state law if public funds are used for religious purposes. However, Houston Mayor John Whitmire released a statement saying city taxpayer funds were not used to build this facility, nor federal or state grants either. And Bush is home to interfaith chapels throughout. Whitmire also says the facility is open to any religious background. Quote, nobody receives preferential access and nobody is excluded. Abbott has extended the threat to Dallas's airport as well. DFW has since scrapped plans for their ablution room. I'm Matt Harab, News 88.7.
A coalition of Texas families is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to stop a new state law requiring the Ten Commandments be displayed in every public school classroom. In a brief filed Monday, the families represented by the ACLU argue the law is unconstitutional. Rachel Lazar is CEO of Americans United for the Separation of Church and State.
We're a country that celebrates religious freedom. And in that type of a country that I think makes most of us very proud, it's not okay for government-run public schools to play favorites when it comes to belief.
The families are petitioning the Supreme Court to overturn a lower court's decision which allowed the new law to remain in effect. I'm Shelby Rose, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance. Building a career is possible at Progressive Insurance, now offering virtual and hybrid employment opportunities with pathways for advancement. Learn more at careers.progressive.com.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now your hosts for Hello Houston, Ernie Manouse and Tessa Barrera.
And happy Tuesday already, Tessa.
Thanks.
Thanks? I said it's Tuesday. You said thanks.
Oh, yeah, it is Tuesday. Sorry, I'm thinking about fajitas and tacos and all the Tuesday things.
It's not only Taco Tuesday, but it's National Fajita Day?
National Fajita Day. Yeah, I was trying to think of a good pun with fajita, and I was like, well, I'm a fajita, maybe? I don't know. It's bad. Just forget it. Forget I said anything.
Right there
That's
on
it.
the table.
That's it. I'm glad I didn't say it. Oh, wait, we're on air.
We're here with you today. We got a great show coming up. Yesterday, your first official day in the chair.
I know.
How does it feel?
It feels great. I was on a high yesterday. I really was. Everyone was so nice.
Yeah, that's going to end now.
Yeah, I know.
We're going to get to
reality. I know. And then, just when I thought I couldn't get any better, Travis got me first day flowers.
Explain who Travis is.
Travis is my man friend. We've been
been
living in sin for about 2.5 years. Yeah. I'm Catholic, so that's why.
Yeah.
But I'm not married.
Does getting married matter?
At this age, no.
Really?
Yeah. I think. I don't know how I would feel in a wedding dress. I never had a quinceañera because I didn't want to wear a dress in front of my peers when I was younger. Yeah, so I just had like kind of a party because I did want, to celebrate being 15 and, in like Hispanic culture. It's like, oh, you're becoming a young lady, So I just, I've never felt comfortable being having a big ball gown in front of people. Like that doesn't make me very comfortable anyway. But I don't think marriage isn't on my priority list.
Yeah, mine either.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I didn't have an option. And then we had a choice. And I was like, I could get married. As weird as this is going to sound, I don't think I'd want to, like you, I don't want to stand up in front of people and do that.
We can have a party. Let's have a party anytime. If we happen to be celebrating, we just love each other so much. But I don't know. It feels, I do know that it's wedding season and I have many save the dates on my calendar. I'm thrilled for the people who go through all the work of arranging and organizing weddings and matrimony. I'm there. Me and a +1. Count me in.
Yeah.
Send me the registry. I'm so in. I'm not anti-wedding. I think I'm not anti-marriage either. No. I'm just kind of doing other things, I think.
I'm not even into
the show.
I don't even like the idea of living together. I like my own space.
I agree with that. I think.
All right, enough from the spinsters at
Right.
Let's
Sorry.
get into today's show. We've got a lot to talk about. We talked about cancer yesterday. Today we're going to talk about melanoma. And there is a lot of interesting research going on there, a lot of new treatments, advances in understanding it. There's even a patch that's been talked about that I'm kind of fascinated about, and we'll be talking about that a little later on in the show. We're also going to talk about there's a drug-resistant fungus that's spreading through the U.S., but the most cases in any state are happening right here in Texas. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that and why it's affecting hospitals and healthcare system so severely. Also, plants. You've got a green thumb.
I don't have a green thumb.
don't.
I am envious of people who do, and I love houseplants. I think they add so much to the interior. It makes me very happy to see them all green and by a window. I need to get better. I think I'm an overwaterer.
I'm coming across very negative today because I don't want anything alive in my house other than me and my cats.
It's just too
And
much.
of course
It's
my
too
mom.
much
But
responsibility.
plants, yeah,
That's
they
it.
just
Well, I
die.
don't have kids. I don't have dogs or cats. So the plants
Plants do
are
it for
those
you.
are the things.
And
that
we're
I'm
also
responsible for.
going to visit Bel Air in our own studio with an amazing sculpture of Alice in Wonderland that's there. And there's 150 hidden things in it. And we're going to talk with the artist about how those were put there and how we can find them. All of that coming up on today's show. But as always, we begin with the headlines. Take us in, Tessa.
Texas Education Commissioner Mike Manouse says Houston ISD could be exiting the state takeover relatively soon. The state's largest school district has been under state control since 2023, and though the intervention is expected to be over as early as the end of this school year, the decision is ultimately with Manouse. To exit the takeover, the district must have no campuses with consecutive failing accountability ratings. It must improve board governance, and the Special Education Department must be in full compliance with state and federal laws. Joining us now to discuss HPM is a HPM education reporter Bianca Seward. She has all the knowledge. It's so nice to sit down with you. I've seen you in passing, but you've done a lot of work and on this subject. So tell me what this all means.
Yeah, I'm coming up on about a year as the education reporter here at Houston Public Media. So it's been a busy year for sure. And it was exciting to see both Manouse and Miles talk last week openly with the press. Number of times we've got a lot of new details kind of coming out. And one of those major details that Manouse had mentioned on Friday was that it looked like Houston ISD was on its way to exit the state takeover. It was scheduled for June 2027. So people had been kind of maybe, anticipating an announcement coming soon. In June 2025, it was extended. So that's always ultimately the decision of Manouse, whether he wants to extend it. If he feels like the district has come far enough, he can. But he confirmed on Friday that it looks like he thinks that any of the last minute issues, which we'll dive into, will be resolved relatively soon, and local electoral control could begin to be returned at the end of the year.
Is that surprising? Is that a statement that caught you off guard, or was it something we were expecting? Because we talked last week, and I had my own theories on this, that maybe some of the negatives we were seeing were to help continue this state takeover, but then this statement kind of changes the narrative.
I think sentiment in any communities under a state takeover is that they want local control back. So there's always that main goal of getting the local board back in the hands of the elected trustees. So we expected Manouse to speak on it soon with an idea of whether we were going to extend or if he was going to allow the exit to start. Does it surprise me? Not necessarily. June 2027 was a marked date on the calendar for a possible exit of the state takeover. We have noticed that HISD has made an improvement in a couple of the exit criteria, although two we're still kind of curious about. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me. And I think Manouse also made mention of some of the special education improvements that need to be made. So as long as those things keep going, the exit could take over or could begin. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me, but anytime that our education leaders talk about the state of the takeover, it is very important to see so it ends.
If the takeover ends, what happens to our superintendent? Is it automatically he's out?
It's not a quick process. So let's say that Manouse decides to announce the exit would start in June 2027. It's going to be a years-long process. The elected trustees will begin to regain control of the board in waves of 3, and Manouse has full authority as to which board members get back on the board first. And so it happens in a very slow, methodical process to allow for the transition to take some time. So it won't be that, June is here and the board as we know it is gone, along with the superintendent. It doesn't happen like that. It happens much slower over a few years.
I'm sorry to jump in. I just wanted to know, what is the temperature of the teachers that are still working in the school district, that have stuck around, that have possibly maybe been micromanaged, had to submit, maybe do extra work? We know teachers are notoriously underpaid. What is the feedback from them?
Yeah, there's a lot of different groups of teachers that have kind of spoken out. I do want to reiterate that because Houston ISD is one of the largest school districts in the state, there are nearly 10,000 teachers employed. So it's really difficult to capture the entire voice of the whole workforce. I will say the teachers unions have been vocal critics of the state takeover, the state appointed board, and the state appointed superintendent. So there is excitement among those groups to see local control back in the hands of Houstonians.
So when you talk about switching back over to the elected board, are these folks that were already elected in, or are there new elections to decide who these trustees are?
Yeah, there have been a couple of elections since the state takeover happened where elected trustees have been voted by the public to sit on the board. Right now, they've been sidelined for the current state-appointed board of managers. So there are some that have been elected since, I even believe, 2024, but have not been able to have any voting power or act at all in a board member capacity. So if it ends in 2027, we should be able to see some of those people start to regain and exercise some of the power they were given in 2024.
The elected folks, have they been at the meetings watching? Are they engaged, even if they're not voting real official board members?
Yeah, many of them have been incredibly engaged. Not all of them. I haven't seen all of them at board meetings, but there are several that show up at every board meeting, show up to a lot of different big events that HISD might be having. They speak out. They are vocal critics of the current leadership in the district. And so they have been heavily involved as much as possible. I have asked personally how many meetings they've had privately with the current board. It's been minimal, they tell me. A lot of times when some big news comes out from the board of managers or from the school board meetings, they're learning in real time with us, or that's what they've shared in my reporting. So there is definitely a bit of daylight between the state-appointed board and the elected board right now, but they do have, I think, a quarterly meeting that they go to. So some interaction.
Yeah, we're being joined by HPM education reporter Bianca Stewart. You have done amazing work. I encourage everyone to kind of go to the HoustonPublicMedia.org website and read some of these stories that you've done. So let's get back to some of the requirements, because there were failing grades because they are ready to relinquish, the takeover. Does that mean schools are doing better? They're passing certain tests? What does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really great question. To reiterate that criteria, the HISD can have no multi-year failing campuses. They have to have a special education department in compliance with state and federal laws, and they have to improve their board governance. Now, I think Murat's words on Friday were eagerly anticipated because this year HISD revealed that 4 of their campuses had failed the accountability ratings. The TEA, the Texas Education Agency, issues accountability ratings to every public campus across the state, and largely they are built by the STAR performance of the students, right? So there's a lot of debate about whether that's the way we should be rating success and achievement in the schools, but that's the system we have in place right now. Now, there was concern. There are 4 failing campuses. What does that mean? Does that mean an automatic extension of the takeover? Murat cleared it up on Friday that they're more focused on the multi-year failing campuses. So those campuses that get into ruts, those campuses that can't pull themselves out. He acknowledged we live in an imperfect world. Campuses, our leaders will fail. They will stumble sometimes, but making sure that they're not consistently in that F rating, we should still be able to exit the takeover. So he was not concerned by the 4 failing campuses. It was 4 elementary schools and 1 special community service schools for students in either schooled at home or because of other disabilities they may have. So that was one hurdle to clear. People did follow up at the Murat event to ask about our special education compliance. In May, the district had announced sweeping changes to the way special education services are delivered in the district. And it prompted almost immediately a federal investigation by the Office of Civil Rights for the Department of Education, as well as the TEA's own investigation, which later found the district in violation of some rights for students with disabilities. So with that all at the front of the mind, people are asking, has the special education department figured it out or gotten themselves cleaned up in a way that could allow us to exit the takeover? Marath says he believes that those issues will be resolved relatively soon. We know that HISD started taking meetings and taking seriously the corrective action the TEA issued. So we'll have to just keep monitoring to see how HISD improves special education, how parents feel about the special education department, to see if we still stay on track to exit the takeover.
I want to remind folks, if you want to join the conversation, 713-440-8870. I want to go back to this transition that is looming. So they start to make the change, let's say. And let's say it starts as we've indicated so far. And then we start to see a decline in the schools. How quickly could they reinstitute a takeover? Is that not what happens? You let it go and then you watch multi-year to see if there's multi-year failures, and then do you think there's an appetite to do it again?
You know, we really don't have a lot of precedent for that, and that's because of the 2015 law that kind of created this movement where Marath could take over a district by the multi-year failing campuses. Previously, that wasn't a way to trigger state takeovers, and they were very rare. So we're only in about 10 years out, and there are a number of districts that are under state takeover, I think around 10. Sorry, I don't have the number right off the top of my head. So we don't have a lot of precedent about what happens when you exit a takeover, and if you fall back into that, the previous failing scores that you had before the takeover, if they would trigger that again. The law says that if any single campus has 5 years of consecutive F accountability ratings, it can trigger a takeover. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what happens. When I talk to education experts across the country who have studied and analyzed state takeovers and how districts fare after a takeover is lifted, they say the evidence is minimal that there's any improvement or lasting improvement, or that the districts even fall off a cliff too far. Honestly, they just kind of get back to like where they might have been, maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit worse. There's not a lot of evidence to point that the takeovers are emphatically improving schools or hurting them that bad. We know that on the ground, the consensus is communities normally do not like them.
Yeah. Has Mike Miles said anything about what he hopes his future holds?
I haven't talked to him too much about what might lie for him after HISD, but he did confirm to us that he believed that the district was on track to exit the takeover in June 2027. So we'll have to keep an eye on where he lands next.
Yeah. There are other stories you're covering at HISD, and I guess there's been a story about school violence. What do we know on that? Any information?
A school violence story. I don't know that I've been across that, but maybe there have been a couple of other reporters here have been digging into that one. Specifically, what were you looking for?
Well, it was a point that had come up by a listener, and so I was going to pass that on to you. It wasn't on what we were going to talk about today. I'm also curious, we had you on last week, we were talking about concerns parents had about the beginning of the new year and what was going on in the new school year. Has that settled?
I think the new year always brings excitement and kind of eagerness and maybe some nerves as well for parents and students alike. We're only in the second week now, and so we'll have to see how a lot of this kind of stuff shakes out. People seem to be incredibly interested to see how the future two schools fare. Those are AI-geared schools. Now, Miles has pushed back a lot on calling them AI schools, but they have a completely different approach to the school day. In the morning, it's the core curriculum, and the afternoon is dedicated to those, those critical thinking skills, those skills to live in a world that's driven by AI. So we're very curious to see and hear from parents and students about how those schools are operating and what the changes are, if the students are enjoying them, if they're getting the education that they need. We will be monitoring those closely.
Well, if anybody is on top of it, it's you. So thank you. We always enjoy it when we can have a chat with Bianca Seward about what's going on in our school districts. Thank you for coming in and talking with us.
Thank you guys
and
for
you
having
can
me.
always follow your reporting on the Houston Public Media website or right here on News 88.7.
There you go. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a drug-resistant fungus that is spreading through healthcare systems right here in Texas and what we should know about that. Coming up on Hello Houston.
Meet Dio Choco. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. This is his story. Visit ridemetro.org/Choco to find out where is Choco.
For a lot of species. I'm Mary Louise Kelly. The threat avian flu poses to Australia and New Zealand's unique wildlife. On the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
It's coming up today at 3 o'clock.
More to watch, more to discover, more to learn. HPM Plus streams the best of PBS and Houston Public Media. Kids, drama, science, local, all in one free app. Go live with channels like TV8, Create, PBS Kids, NHK World, and more, streaming around the clock. And PBS members get full access to past seasons with Passport. Search HPM Plus on your smart and connected TVs. It's all waiting for you.
On HPM Plus, support comes from Dekamera. The 26-27 season features pianist Igor Levit in an all-Beethoven recital, Danish string quartet, jazz with Joshua Redman and Julianne Laz, and more. Information and tickets at dekamera.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Chariot Energy, offering customers electricity plans that match their energy use schedules and lifestyles. All plans come with 100% renewable energy. Details at chariotenergy.com.
And Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing safety. More at texasmutual.com/TexansGetIt.
Support comes from UT Health Houston, Houston's health university, where education, research, and patient care come together to help advance health and improve lives in Houston and beyond. More at houstonshealthuniversity.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Tessa Barrera and Ernie Manouse.
Texas is leading the nation in cases of a potentially deadly drug-resistant fungus called Candida auris. More than 1,100 cases have been reported in the state this year, with most infections occurring in healthcare settings. So, how does Candida auris spread? Who is most at risk? And what can be done to prevent it? Well, joining us is Dr. Zuri Dale, the Assistant Vice President of Research and Innovation in New Initiatives at Texas Southern University. Dr. Dale, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
If folks want to join into this conversation, give us a call, 713-440-8870, because if they're like me, they've got a lot of questions about this.
Yes.
Okay, first thing, help us understand what it means when it's a resistant fungus, a drug-resistant fungus. Is it exactly what we think, that there's nothing that can help it and it's running wild like a sci-fi movie? Or is it just a term that means something we should better understand?
You know, I want to be careful and explain this properly because, you know, in a hospital setting, I think we talk about antimicrobial resistance a lot. And I think the first thing is that it's important to know this is not a bacteria, it's a fungus. So that's first. So the issue of, you know, antimicrobial resistance is actually not why this particular pathogen is able to grow. What happens is that when you're in a hospital setting, because there's such a heavy use on antimicrobials, what happens is that it strips out the competition. So for a yeast, like this particular strain, it's a very poor competitor. And typically, this particular strain of yeast is able to live on our bodies as just being colonized, meaning it could be on our arms, our clothing, our groin, even our underarm, and actually causes us no harm, generally speaking. But in a hospital setting where antimicrobials are used so frequently, the competition, meaning the other bacteriums that are also present, they get stripped out. And I think it creates just this niche for this particular fungus to grow. And because hospitals they also create portals of entry. So if the fungi was just living on your skin or living on your clothing or even on the bed rail, right? Otherwise, for a person who is generally healthy, that would be no issue. But when you think catheters, when you think thermometer probes, and the way in which the hospital setting just creates a portal of entry, once the fungi is able to enter, that is when it's able to cause harm. But generally speaking, when we think about those cases, the majority of them, about 2/3 of them, are just colonized isolates, meaning that they're not necessarily causing adverse health impact. They're just kind of existing on our skin.
So, and help me understand this then. It's if you get infected if you have this fungus growing on your skin in the real world situation, is it that the other bacteria, fungi, whatever on your skin help keep it in check?
Yes.
And then when you when the surface is cleaned of all of those
Yes.
warriors that go after
Yes,
it,
now
that's
this
when it
one can grow.
grow.
Yes, and so because antimicrobials or antibiotics are not effective against fungi, once we strip away the bacteria, it now allows the fungi to grow more numerously. But generally, I think even with bacteria, it's important that we have normal flora. We have normal bacteria that exist on our body, and a lot of it is what keeps us healthy.
Right.
So when
the good bacteria.
So we stripped it away.
I
and
just heard a report on NPR the other day about when we talk about creating life in space and people having and living in space, that they're not exposed to the same things we're exposed to on Earth, which allow us to be resistant to other things. So this is just like a microcosm of what they're talking about.
So it's like you think about it, antibiotics, for a fungi, they don't create resistance, but they do create opportunity. And that's important because in a hospital setting, the surfaces are continuously being cleaned. It's a lot of microbial use in a hospital setting.
Yeah, Dr. Zuri, so Texas leads the nation in these cases. What is it about here? Is it our humidity? I mean, what is it about Texas that we lead the nation in cases of this fungus and spreading not in a good way, not the good fungus?
Yeah, right, not the good one. So one of the things about this particular fungus is that it's highly resistant to heat. It's highly resistant to drying, so it's able to persist. It's extremely persistent. But I think what might be creating this, and this is just a hypothesis.
I love a good theory from a smart woman.
We have a very dense hospital network.
I see.
And I think what we don't talk about enough in terms of transmission, unlike COVID-19, unlike RSV, unlike the flu, this is not airborne, right? This is not a pathogen that exists in the airway and you sneeze and I can catch it. When we think about the primary routes of exposure, we're looking at hands of a caregiver. We're looking at some of the devices and the supplies that we utilize in the hospital system. But I think the third one is the transfer of the patients, and because our network is so dense. So we're thinking about a person who is hospitalized and they move from the hospital to a rehab facility, and they move from a rehab facility to a long-term facility. And if that long-term facility that is receiving them has not been made aware that this particular person could have an isolate, they don't know to isolate or even screen this person for the disease. And I think that what's interesting, well, not disease, but for the pathogen. And I think what we don't really talk about enough in this particular case is how what you're going to see is an overgrowth of this fungus, not necessarily in your acute care facility. So we're not talking about your emergency room or your acute facilities where a person comes and stays a couple of days. We're talking long-term care facilities. So some of those longer-term stays, and you have the perfect scenario. So you have a concentration of individuals who are already compromised with a pathogen that is able to persist and evade a lot of the antifungals, and you have individuals who are immunocompromised but in one place at the same time.
Wow.
And then there's also very heavy equipment and device use that just create portals of entry. That's actually why you see it more so in hospitals and other places.
When you talk about immunocompromised, so once again, explain why that makes it more fruitful for the fungus.
Okay. So I think you kind of talked about this a little bit. Most of the times, especially with diseases that are infectious in nature, it may not necessarily be the exposure that causes you adverse health impact, but you already had an underlying disease and then you were exposed.
Right.
So very similar to COVID-19, we see the exact same thing with individuals who are HIV positive, that, something small, a very small exposure can cause extreme health impact because their immune system is already compromised. And so with this, we're dealing with the elderly.
So your immune system then does have some tools that it's equipped to fight this fungus if you are full, I hate to use the term healthy, but working on all cylinders.
And otherwise considered to be a healthy adult.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is the reason why we're able to exist with the fungi on our person right now as we're having this conversation, and we're not as susceptible to a long-term disease because our body just has a natural mechanism for helping us to fight off
So this may
disease.
sound like a dumb question, but is it because we are over clean that our healthcare facilities are too clean? that we've invited this in.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you word it that way. I will say that this is not a case of dirty hospitals at all.
Right.
This is not about individuals contracting a disease because the facility is not clean. In many cases, it is because the facility is clean, and it has just created an opportunity for growth. I see what you did there. That was good. That was good.
Well, just like we evolve and medicine gets better, it's like some of these bacteria and some of the fungus, they are also smarter and find these areas where they can thrive. And that's scary because you talk about treatment resistance. How is this treated, and what has proven effective? Because this is a fungus that's known for, not reacting to these, antimicrobe things that we all use.
Absolutely. So I'm not a pharmacist, but I can talk generally, right?
Okay.
So antifungals, fluconazole is one. I think that's one that, I've used that one before. Many of us may have used fluconazole before, but I think what happens typically is that susceptible yeast, those tend to die, and any of the yeast that is resistant to that particular drug, if it is resistant, it can survive and it can multiply. And so now what we have is a greater population of the resistant yeast. And I think a really good example of this, and this is a separate pathogen, but I always like to explain it this way. When we think about the flu vaccine, the flu is a virus, but it's a very similar concept. When we think about the flu, at any given moment, we can have up to 4 circulating strains of the flu. And every time we're vaccinated, it is to neutralize the circulating strain at the time. Mm-hmm. Mutations, pathogens, they mutate. They create emerging threats that may not have been last year's strain. So we're constantly trying to chase the current circulating strain. So what medication may work for one person may not work for someone else.
Take me back to antifungals. You think about, when we think about athlete's foot or, God forbid, jock itch, which are basically the same thing, or these other things, there are sprays, there are creams, there are all those. Are those effective in this area, or is it a different kind of fungus and it doesn't react? And I'll add on to that question, could we overuse them in a sense that then they become less effective?
I'll take the second question first. That answer is yes. And I again, we see this a lot with bacteria because a person may have a head cold or they may have a fungus and then they take a Z-Pack. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's actually not going to be effective. This is not a bacterium. This is a fungi. So overuse is absolutely an issue because overuse will contribute to creating some of that resistance that we see. So I may think that I have something that I don't really have, so I utilize a product, and now I am essentially building immunity to it, and I'm creating a situation where when I actually need it, I may be less susceptible to the impacts of the medicine.
Is this similar to a ringworm or athlete's foot or all of that?
Or even like a staph infection? Is that too?
No, I would not say that. Like I said, it can exist on your skin fine. Whereas, ringworm, you typically see a rash or a physical manifestation of that particular infection. With this, it exists, and it really is not infectious until it enters your body. Mm-hmm. So once your body has a portal that has allowed in thermometer probes, catheters, these are some of the instruments that are and devices that are heavily utilized in a hospital setting, and that is when they create adverse impact. It's not just because you have Candida on your person.
And the treatment for it, if it does, and because we started about it being deadly. Talk to me about the reality.
So there are a number of treatments, and I definitely don't want to overspeak because I'm not an infectious disease physician. So I'm a researcher. But there are a number of treatments. Fluconazole is an example of one. They have a number of other treatments on the market that your physician may prescribe to you, depending upon the current strain of the fungus that you are infected with and some of your other health conditions.
Okay. And we talked about treatment, but what are the effects? What are people seeing in order for doctors to diagnose?
How do you know you have it?
So screening. And that's one of the interesting things is because most people do not know to screen. So I am sick. I am in a hospital. I'm transferred to a rehab facility. Perhaps I have a stroke, right? I'm in the hospital. I'm transferred to a rehab. I'm there for a bit. I'm transferred to a long-term care facility, and no one has screened me at the end. They would have had no reason to screen me at the end. And so some of the questions that I think some of the facilities should ask, do you have you had any cases of Candida before this particular person got here?
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but a Candida screening, is it a swab? Is it, what kind of test is it?
So they have different tests for it.
Okay.
You could do a blood test. There are a number of different tests that they can do for the screening. But absolutely, what the facility needs to ask is, are you coming from a place where there were any cases of Candida at your facility?
I see.
Otherwise, you would not know. And we see that again, even with COVID-19. I mean, the majority of people, they may have COVID-19, but you have no reason to get screened unless you have a reason to get screened.
So the fungus gets into your system.
Mm-hmm.
What happens then?
So I think a lot of that just depends on some of the a person's, how do I best do I say it?
The immunities or the immunocompromised folks can't battle against it.
So it can take hold. What we've seen is individuals who have diabetes tend to have more adverse health impacts.
Meaning what? What are the adverse health impacts so people understand what we're talking
Just in an inability to recover from, and I want to border the line because as epidemiologists, we like to talk a lot about the data and the prevention, and I don't want to border the line of an infectious disease physician. So I want to be very clear. I want to be very clear about that. And as a researcher, I don't like to misspeak as it relates to that.
Let me change the question then and ask, as a researcher, as what you do, what concerns you about this fungus?
I think my biggest concern is that a lot of people may be infected and they do not know. I think that's a large concern. I think the largest concern too is that individuals like you may take one of your family members to a facility and you don't know the questions to ask. Mm-hmm. Are you able to screen? Are you able to treat? And I think long-term care facilities, they create the perfect situation for diseases to spread. So individuals are staying there for a long time. And you're often dealing with issues of thinner staffing, right? So you also have thinner staffing, whereas some of the acute hospitals are able to isolate and detect a lot faster than the long-term care facilities.
And I want to remind everyone, we're talking with Dr. Zuri Dale about this drug-resistant fungus and other things in that area. You can give us a call if you want to join the conversation, 713-440-8870. Tessa had asked you a little bit about Texas having a larger number of cases than we're seeing other places. Have you seen from other areas different systems, different hospital systems that have combated this well? Are there lessons to be learned from other folks that maybe we could be applying here better?
Most of my experience is in the state of Texas, I will say. Right now, we have about 1,200 active cases. The majority of those are colonized, and we see that in other states. Texas is leading, as you said, but I think that our dense network is what's creating that. I think the biggest thing is early detection and isolation, and I think that that is an area where we could grow, but it's not necessarily because the hospital systems are not equipped. It's just we just do not know that individuals may be infected.
Has there been a blast to these long-term care facilities that they are very aware of this problem? Has there been any feedback from these places?
I will be honest and say not that I have seen.
Ooh.
I've not seen any information go out to some of the facilities. I'm a part of a lot of the networks, the groups, and I've not seen it. Has not been a lot of conversation, I will say, about that. And so we have to actually go into some of these facilities and train and help them to be able to identify and detect. How do we know that this is at what point do we know that this is a person in which we should run labs on this individual to know that they, to screen?
Okay, before I let you go, what we always do with these kind of conversations, once more, remind people of proper hygiene. What are they supposed to do to stay clean and healthy out there?
I think generally we know that hand washing at least 5 times a day can limit our exposure to an infectious disease tremendously. So I always say to wash at least 5 times a day. Of course, we know touching different surfaces and putting our hands in our mouth could definitely be a major contributor to disease as well. And I think just generally preventative care, that is a major one. I think from a health equity framework, we don't talk about this as much, but the majority of people, particularly the underserved, may not know that they have a pre-existing condition. So I'm entering a hospital facility. I do not even know that I'm immunocompromised because I do not know that I have a comorbidity. So I go into the hospital for one thing. It may be a stroke. It may be a cardiovascular issue, and I leave with an infectious disease. And I think one of the things that we don't talk about a lot either is like this sort of bi-directional relationship between infectious infectious diseases and chronic diseases. I think COVID-19 made it extremely clear that individuals who had a chronic disease or a comorbidity or were immunocompromised in some way were more susceptible, but where there's less evidence for this one in particular, but we know it to be true when we look at other infectious diseases, is the way in which me contracting an infectious disease could lead to something that is chronic in nature.
Dr. Dale, thank you so much. Dr. Dale is Assistant Vice President of Research and Innovation Initiatives. I'll get it right one of these days for the Texas Southern University. Remember, Dr. Dale is talking about this in general. You need to talk with your healthcare provider always to get the exact best advice for you and your health situation. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's plant time. You ready, Tessa?
So ready. Getting my thumbs painted green.
Okay, we're going to find out more as Hello Houston continues. Thank you.
Meet Damola, songwriter, world-class violinist, and award-winning multi-genre artist. We just took his keys for the day and gave him a Ride Metro fare card. Visit ridemetro.org/Damola to learn more about his ride.
Kentucky Attorney General Russell Coleman talks about this case next time on Here and Now.
You can hear that today at 1 p.m.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University, brings to you The Vibe. R&B, hip-hop, and neo-soul. Music that resonates with all ages. The Vibe on 88.7 HD3 and on the Houston Public Media app.
Support comes from Baker Ripley, serving Greater Houston for more than 100 years, with programs supporting families, education, financial stability, and workforce. Find program details, volunteer information, and more at bakerripley.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from CertaPro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com.
Support comes from the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, presenting Ernesto Neto, Sunforce Ocean Life, an immersive exhibition exploring ecology, spirituality, and sensory awareness. Now through September 7th, tickets at mfah.org.
Support comes from Houston Theater Week, a citywide celebration of live performances. Participating organizations include theater, dance, and music presenters. Returning August 24th through the 30th. Tickets at HoustonTheaterWeek.com.
Support comes from UT's Center for Professional Education, helping to guide professional growth every step of the way, with courses designed to improve professional skills, earn credentials, and make a career change. Details at professionaled.utexas.edu.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Tessa Barrera and Ernie Manouse.
Welcome back to Hello Houston. A houseplant can do more than brighten up a room. It's already brightened up our studio. For many people, plants bring a sense of calm and a deeper connection to nature. But which plants are right for your space, and what's the best way to keep them healthy and thriving? The Flora Culture, a local plant shop, is helping plant lovers answer those questions with curated greenery and biophilic design solutions. Today, we're joined by Flora Culture owner Jemine Oakes, who joins us to talk about houseplant care tips and the growing trend of biophilic design. Jemine, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you for having me.
I actually had to stop Jemine and Ernie from saying, "Hey, no, Ernie, you can be a plant guy." Let's talk about. Can you explain what biophilic design is for those who may not know?
Yes. So biophilia was a term that was coined somewhere in the 70s, and basically, it's our innate desire to connect with nature. Humans have a symbiotic relationship. We do the carbon dioxide. Okay, so are you smarter than a fifth grader?
Except Ernie. Ernie does not. He does not want to connect with the life.
No. Yeah. You have to. We can talk about all the studies about how it helps with your mental health and productivity and reduces stress and all those things, but also just beautifies your space.
But it causes me stress. They come into my home and then I worry, am I going to kill this one too. And inevitably I do. And many times I've tried and I thought this one is going to work. And it doesn't. So I've kind of gotten myself out of the game.
Oh, we have to pick the right one for you.
Okay.
And that's part of what we do. Okay, so biophilic design, innate desire to connect with nature, and then including in that is the design aspect, meaning that I brought two options here. So here's a Cereus monstrose that's not potted. You could get this at any plant shop. And then this is sort of when we style it, making it, it's just elevating. And so that's the design aspect of it. So you can come into the store, we'll do it for you. You don't have to get your hands dirty, and then we'll pick the right one for you. Ernie,
it's not about getting dirty. It's about, and I think, and looking into the research here, I think I learned some of what a lot of us do wrong, is we think if there's a problem with your plant, first thing to do is water it more.
Oh, that's the last thing you should do.
But isn't that what most of us do?
That's the number one reason why people kill their plants is they're like, oh, she looks sad. Let me water. The plant's like, don't get away from me, you know, because that's most plants can bounce back from dehydration, but not a lot of plants can bounce back from root rot, which means basically, the roots are just sitting in water and soaking and not getting a chance to dry up.
We have a YouTuber, Earl Grey T-Cat, saying, question, how do you keep indoor plants from getting infested with bugs and having the soil become a haven for these pests? What's a pet-safe way for this?
So, okay. Pests are inevitable because it's just like someone hands you a baby when you get, you leave the hospital. Here's your newborn. And I'm like, hey, I would love this. No flu, no colds, no snotty noses.
No runny noses.
Nothing, none of that. And so plants are living things. And so if I told you that you'll never have a pest, that would be lying. But there's a reason something is wrong. They're sick, then they have a pest, and then you take care of it. Don't panic. Just treat it as you would. I have 3 kids. At this point, I'm like, bring it on. And so how do you prevent that? Lots of light, knowing what your plants need. If the plant needs a lot of light, it's going to be struggling if you're giving it lower light. And so give it more light. If you're overwatering, it's causing, too much water in the soil, and then you can get fungus gnats, which people panic about, but they're just annoying. They don't really do anything.
The Flora Culture, Ernie, it's like there's 2 locations, right?
Yes,
2 locations.
2 locations.
One in Midtown, one
like a mile from the Galleria.
Okay, and it really is an experience I like to go in, but it also doubles as like a plant rehab place. People will take their sickly plants to you guys, and you guys can give recommendations. What are the most common things you see that people take in and you're like, okay, this is a quick, easy fix?
Yeah, I would say repotting, which is me. I'll be honest. I'm lazy. At home, we have our 2 shops. We have our greenhouses. So at home, I have a collection of Sansevieria. I'm coming for you, Ernie. That's going to be your plant. And Sansevierias are incredibly resilient, and you can keep them and forget. In fact, that's what they thrive on. They thrive on neglect. Okay, like just walk away, look away, just leave me alone. And so I have probably like 50 different types. My husband will argue that it's his collection, but it's actually mine. What's his is mine. And so basically, Sansevieria are a perfect example of that. You just want to, neglect them and let them be.
If you want to call in with questions for Jemine, you can do that right now at 713-440-8870. What about, and oftentimes people gift me with those plants that they claim need no water. So leave them alone. They get the moisture out of the air, and that's all they need. So just, is this real?
This is not real, unless it's a plastic plant. Sure. And I meant to answer Tessa's question about what's the most common thing that people bring. It's the repotting, and I forget to pot. It needs to go up in size because like the whole pot is covered in roots, and I forget. And so that's the number one thing. On Saturday we have a long line. Monsteras are the most notorious because they're growing. You see them growing, and now the roots are turning all in the pot, and so moving that to a new pot, that's probably the most common thing that we have that people bring into our shop. They just don't want to have to deal with it themselves, or they're nervous about potting. And we have workshops to teach those kinds of things too.
Okay, back to my plants that need no water.
No, it's a plastic plant. They're lying.
That's a myth.
There's one that's in a big bulb, and it's kind of been growing, and it had a flower on it for a while, and then that died. And then another one came.
I see. Yes.
And then I'm like, well, maybe I'm supposed to soak it every so often. Maybe I'm supposed to water. I don't know what to ever do.
Okay, so I think those are like bulbs where if they're in a dormant season, yes, you want to. There's a lot of plants that are like that. People think that they're dead and they just go through like dormancy period. And then when they start to flower, now they're using a lot of energy, they need more resources, and that's when you start to water. I would say that is not an easy one. Who's setting you up? I think people are setting you up.
Okay, plant food.
Yeah.
Is that legit or not?
It is legit.
And
Absolutely.
how do you know what you give to what plant and how much?
Okay, so I
got these real basic tech questions.
Yeah. So at our shop we carry this brand that's local to Houston. They've been here for 30 years, not 70, 30 years, and it's Microlife. It's an organic liquid mix, and I pour it with all my plants. I can even use it on outdoor plants that you're going to eat. So you want to be careful. There's plant food out there. If I weren't on the radio, I would call out all the names, but just find me at the store later. I'll tell you all the ones I think should not be sold to people, because then you put too much and it's burning the roots,
Right, yeah.
and then the volume is wrong, and you're fertilizing at this
Can a plant
point.
live with just water?
A sansevieria.
I think I'm learning about a plant I should have.
Sansevieria, yes. I
calling your
mean,
name.
it can live. They call it, another name for it is called mother-in-law's tongue, because it is indestructible.
I have one that looks like it's dying, and I'm like, no, you're not.
No, you're
This
not.
is just a suggestion.
Yes.
And I think being able to deal with maybe not like ugly, being able to deal with it being a little ugly sometimes. I think people see a plant when they first buy it and it's bloomed and it's perfect, and they go this, and they think it's going to be that way through all seasons. But plants, like, they're just like people. Like, they have seasons, and they have their bad hair days and their good hair days.
Yes.
On a bad hair day.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to figure out the color of the leaves is supposed to be telling me if they need more water or less water. True
Yeah.
or false? Like, if it's yellowy, is that one thing? If it's browny, that's the other, or no?
What is yellow?
Yes. Okay. Now, yellow can mean, this is where it gets tricky. Yellow can mean overwatering. If it's yellow and soft and kind of like mushy, probably overwatering. And by the time you see that, there's a lot of damage done underneath, under the soil. Okay. And then sometimes it can also yellow, and that could mean like dehydration. If it's looking crispy, dehydration. But again, like I said, I think if you want to build confidence, start with a sansevieria. That will build your confidence, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm really great at this.
What about the apps that I've seen all the time? For some reason, they're targeting me in my social media now. Take a picture of your plant, and it'll tell me what's wrong with it. Do you have any faith in those apps? Oh, that look on your face tells me you don't have a lot of faith in those.
Sometimes I feel like it's misleading, because they'll send a photo, they'll have a photo, this is your plant suffering, and then they show another photo. I'm like, that is literally a different plant. It is not the same plant. Now, I don't want to say, one size fits all. I'm sure there's great apps out there. And so I just think really taking the time to listen, to understand, to feel your plants. I mean, also plants feel our feelings and our emotions. There's so many studies out there about like the things that we say. Plants like certain music, our positive affirmations, like the words that we speak. I do a kids workshop, and I tell the kids, I'm like, this is a study on plants. You have two plants, positive words, negative words. All the variables are the same except words.
And speaking of words, I'm going to jump in real quick because we have Michelle on the line. I want to get one call in at least before we run out of time.
Yes.
Michelle from Bel Air, what's on your mind? Quickly.
Hey, yes, good afternoon. I was just calling because I'm in a salon suite, and I wanted to decorate with plants to add a little ambiance. And but also I've heard that plants are good to like clean the air as well. So do you have? It's about 100 square feet, but I have really high ceilings. Do you have any suggestions for some plants for that type of space?
Great question, Michelle.
That's a great question. Yeah, so plants do the oxygen carbon dioxide exchange, meaning that humans breathe in oxygen, and plants take in oxygen and breathe, I said that opposite, carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. That's why we have a symbiotic relationship. So really all plants do that. All plants. Certain plants do it at certain times, like in the daytime. Certain plants do it at nighttime. So all plants will do that for you. So look up a NASA study that was done, and it'll kind of give you all the details about that. But also, if we're being honest, I mean, your AC is also, in 2026, our HVAC system, I don't like to sell people on that because I'm like, it is misleading. You would have to have a ton of plants
to filter, to
to
do
fil-
the job
to do that.
of
A
the
ton of
filter that
plants.
we yeah.
And so I want to be
Jemine,
honest.
I think I may try a plant now.
Yes, please.
Let's see. We'll let you know how that works. Thank you so much for coming in. Jemine Oakes is the owner of Flora Culture, and we've learned something new.
Thanks for
and you
having
brightened up
me.
our studio.
Learned you needed a plant.
Yes.
Yeah, we kind of knew that.
Yes.
Coming up, more of today's top headlines as we head into the second hour of Hello Houston. Don't go anywhere.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, presenting Ernesto Neto Sun Force Ocean Life, an immersive exhibition exploring ecology, spirituality, and sensory awareness. Now through September 7th. Tickets at mfah.org.
Remember, you can watch Hello Houston on HPM Plus, free to download for smart TVs. Hot today, the high 97, heat index values up around 105. Currently 90, and this is your NPR station, KUHF Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, the Harris County Commissioner's Court is weighing a proposed $3.1 billion general fund budget, which could mean higher property taxes for residents. We'll discuss this and continue diving into the top headlines of the day. I'm Tessa Barrera.
And I'm Ernie Manouse. Can melanoma be turned from one of the deadliest skin cancers into a disease that's increasingly treatable? Breakthroughs in improving patients' odds.
Plus, what happens when an artist hides 150 secrets inside a giant sculpture? Well, that Bel Air landmark has become one of Houston's most unusual treasure hunts, and the artist is here with us.
Also, we want to hear from you. Give us a call or text us at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us live on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law and special envoy, is calling on Hamas to lay down their weapons as a condition for ending the war in Gaza. Kushner has held back-to-back discussions with the Palestinian militant group and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has said Israeli forces will not withdraw without full Hamas disarmament. We have more from NPR's Daniel Estrin.
He said it's, quote, hard to trust a terrorist organization that committed what he called terrible atrocities, but he said the Hamas officials said all the right things. Then Kushner went to Israel and met Netanyahu. He said the meeting lasted nearly 4 hours. They pored over the details of a new U.S.-backed roadmap for how to move forward in Gaza. Netanyahu initially rejected that roadmap for Israeli withdrawal from Gaza alongside Hamas disarmament. But Kushner said he sat with Netanyahu and his team and talked through what he called misunderstandings and misinformation about the plan.
NPR's Daniel Estrin reporting. The ABC network is suing the Federal Communications Commission in a case with major First Amendment implications, arguing that the Trump administration has violated its free speech rights by launching investigations and challenging its broadcast licenses. ABC and its corporate parent, the Walt Disney Company, argue that the FCC has taken these actions to please President Trump. We have more from NPR's David Folkenflag.
The network's lawsuit cites Trump's own social media posts, which condemn ABC's news coverage, its talk show The View, and late-night comedian Jimmy Kimmel, who has frequently mocked the president. Trump has openly called for ABC to be stripped of its broadcast licenses. ABC and Disney own 8 local TV stations. They require federal licenses because they rely on the public airwaves. They are also in 6 of the nation's largest markets and contribute significantly to ABC's bottom line. FCC Chair Brendan Carr says he's making sure broadcasters operate in the public interest, a legal requirement, and don't violate Trump's orders on DEI. David Folkenflik, NPR News.
Opening arguments are set to begin today in California against Meta over the harms its social media platforms have allegedly caused children and teenagers. California, Colorado, Kentucky, and New Jersey will argue the case, but 29 state attorneys general sued the tech giant over child safety and privacy in 2023. Earlier this month, New Mexico successfully fought to force Meta to implement changes on its platforms and pay nearly $1 billion. Meta disputes the allegation, saying it has adopted a number of child safety measures, and the evidence, it says, will reflect that. U.S. stocks are trading lower this hour. The Nasdaq is down 325 points. It's NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Shelby Rose. Houston Mayor John Whitmire is responding after Governor Greg Abbott threatened to pull state support from Bush Intercontinental Airport over its ablution room. The foot washing station and prayer room in Terminal D has been open since 2024, but Abbott now claims it's illegal religious favoritism, arguing public funding for religious purposes could violate state law. But Whitmire says no state, federal, or taxpayer funds were used to build the facility. He also notes IAH has interfaith chapels throughout the airport and says the space is open to all faiths. Quote, nobody receives preferential access and nobody is excluded, end quote. Venezuela's oil minister will address top energy executives during a conference in Houston tomorrow. News 88.7's Natalie Weber tells us more.
The conference is expected to draw 600 attendees, bringing together Venezuelan officials and the city's largest oil and gas companies. The speakers include Venezuela's oil minister and a vice president of Venezuela's state-owned oil company. Organizers say the event will give U.S. oil and gas executives a chance to meet with some of Venezuela's top energy leaders. After the U.S. seized Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, President Trump encouraged American companies to invest in Venezuela's oil resources. However, many energy leaders have remained skeptical. I'm Natalie Weber, News 88.7.
Harris County won't lay off employees despite facing a $130 million budget deficit next year. Commissioner Adrian Garcia says federal funding cuts have exacerbated the deficit as the county works to make up for the federal government slashing services.
When we set the budget, it's not as simple as what we deal with, what we are working as a county government to provide to our residents. We have to deal with these unfunded mandates that we get from the state and from the federal government, thanks to President Trump and thanks to Governor Abbott.
Their proposed budget is just over $3 billion. Commissioners are set to vote on it next month. I'm Shelby Rose, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
Live from Houston Public Media, News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Ernie Manouse and Tessa Barrera.
Hello, Houston. We're back for an hour or two. I've been assigned the welcome back. How did I do?
Very cheery.
Right?
Really welcoming.
Did you see that? I had a good stretch. Listen, we want to say hi to everyone watching on youtube.com/Houston Public Media. You know, you can comment on everything we're saying, including what plant you think would be best for Ernie. But we've got a busy second hour. It's going to be
I loved watching the
stuff.
comments during that. We call you our HuTubers, for those of you who are new to the show. And they're the folks that chat all the time over in the YouTube chat. And we love following along, and great questions come in there. But it's fun watching them talk about the plants and what works and what doesn't. I got an answer supposedly to my plant that doesn't need water or anything. It's called an air plant. But our guest said, yeah.
She was myth busting, I think, more than anything
else. She doesn't feel like there is such a thing. But I don't know. It's still got some green leaves on it.
I will say that there are certain magical people who, I mean, you've visited a house where they're, thriving and it's green and it looks like a rainforest. Yeah. I think there are special, healers of this world that kind of just know, intuitively. And then you have people like us who are doing their best, guessing. We love them. We appreciate them.
I do want to put out a caveat, though, to everyone listening to, if you have pets, Talk with your vet about what kind of plants to have or not have in your home. Certain flowers, certain plants are poisonous to cats or dogs, and they sometimes love to nibble on those. Be careful. So always just make sure before you go out and do that, make sure you got something that's pet safe.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice.
A little tip there. I'm full of little tips.
Little tidbits.
And also earlier we were talking about this fungus that's infecting people and all that. And remember, and we'll be talking about cancer in this upcoming hour, always remember to check with your healthcare provider about any of the information you hear on a show like this. Because like even with the astrology, when you read that in the papers, it's always generalized to the biggest group of people. And so that's the same thing with medical talk on radio and TV shows. We're speaking more in generalities, and you always need to check with your own healthcare provider. It's just our little healthcare disclaimer there.
Good reminder. Good reminder.
Never hurts to be reminded.
You want to get into some headlines?
We can, but first I want to know what you're doing this evening. Anything fun?
Okay, so it is Tuesday. My friend Leela does a sound bath at, is it Levy Park or Levy Park?
Levy Park.
Levy Park. Okay.
Sound bath?
A sound bath. She has these giant bowls. Anyway, it's her last one before she moves. She's been betrothed to a man. She got engaged, and now she's moving to Indiana. She's lived in Houston her whole life. She's kind of freaking out about living anywhere but Houston.
But the Midwest is great.
And I said, listen, worst case scenario, you hate it, you come back, you change your mind, not a big deal. People, reinvent and restart all the time. But so it is her last night to doing the sound bath. I didn't always go because it's not maybe always my thing.
I don't even know what a sound bath is.
So a sound bath is something where there's these, and I am generalizing here. There's these bowls, right? And there's a certain type of bowl. And then there's this thing that you swirl around the bowl and it creates some
That
type
sound?
of frequency, like a different type of frequency. And it's supposed to balance your chakras, which apparently there's like 7 of those or 8. I could be getting that number wrong.
What I love is we've talked astrology and chakras, and we never talk about that
you
stuff.
asked, okay? You asked. And I normally would say, well, it's Tuesday. I'll probably just get some tacos. But tonight I actually do have plans to go say goodbye to her formally. And wish her on her next leg of her life journey.
Well, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, all chakra aligned.
Oh, I'm going to be vibrating at the highest of frequencies tomorrow.
Now I'm interested in getting into headlines now that we've heard all of that.
Okay. Well, KHU reports the Harris County Commissioner's Court is weighing a proposed $3.1 billion general fund budget, which could mean higher property taxes for residents. The county's budget office says spending would increase 12%, with healthcare and law enforcement costs driving the rise. With it, the proposed county tax rate would go from 38.1 cents to 41.9 cents for every $100 in taxable value. So for a home with $400,000 in taxable value, that would mean about $152 more a year in county property taxes if approved. That would move the county's rate to the highest it can be set without voter approval. The proposal also includes $76 million for law enforcement pay parity to fund vacant positions. The county said priority services would be maintained without layoffs. The tax rate was not set at Monday's meeting. Commissioners are scheduled to set the rates on September 8th. If you have thoughts on the budget proposal, you can call or text 713-440-8870.
As we gather up those comments, so please let us know what you think about this proposal and the movement that way. But I know one thing, talking about taxes always makes people hot. So before we get into our thoughts on this and before we start taking calls and people's comments, let's talk about the heat.
Okay.
We have with us Elise Smith, who is a certified broadcast meteorologist for KTRK-TV in Houston, on the line with us right now. Hello there.
Hello there, Ernie and Tessa. How are y'all today?
We are doing good, but we could be a little cooler. Is that coming in our future?
Oh, gosh, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. But we are entering what will likely be the hottest and driest stretch of summer. And it's mid-August, so, typically it gets pretty hot this time of year. But we're really buckling up and gearing up for a pretty hot stretch here over the next 2 weeks.
So explain to me why it's hitting us and what's going on.
So we've got a heat dome overhead. So that is a big area of high pressure in the atmosphere. And these are associated with sinking motion in the atmosphere, calm weather patterns, lots of sunshine. This is something that actually seasonally, just checking in kind of the last few years here in Southeast Texas, it's this time of year in mid-August when we can really see these heat domes anchor in across the South, across Texas, and bring us this stretch of triple-digit weather, just kind of looking through some of our logs. I mean, August of 2024, right around this time of year, we had 7 days in a row with triple-digit high temperatures. And at this mark, we'll likely see about 9 to 10 of them over the next 7 to 10 days at least.
So what brings relief? What breaks the dome?
A really nice trough or a tropical system. Take your pick. But yeah, so unfortunately, though, neither of those are in the forecast either. I mean, from a forecasting perspective, typically when we start looking about 2 weeks out, I'm looking at things kind of like jet stream patterns, things of that nature to really see if there could be some relief in sight. It looks like potentially by the end of next week, not this week, but next week, there could be something that kind of kicks this heat dome out and moves it either farther to the west or to the east. But yeah, these heat domes, this is something that is somewhat seasonal for this time of year. But just when you think about, I guess, climate change, how much we can heat up, how quickly we can heat up, these heat domes are getting hotter for us here in Houston.
Was July also kind of an astronomically hot month? I saw some things on my algorithm alluding to the fact that it was a record hot month for the whole country. Is that right?
Yeah, so that is one thing too. The El Nino that is happening right now, it's not only kind of heating up the waters in the Pacific Ocean, but air temperatures too are somewhat reflective of that. That's one thing I love about the weather and meteorology is that in some way everything is interconnected across the globe. But yes, from a climate perspective too for the country, July was a very hot month, one of the hottest months on record when we talk about kind of seasonal averages across the country.
I've always prided Houstonians in being tough because you know the summers are hot and we get through it. We know what's to come and we can handle it. But it seems to be hotter than ever. Do you have some sort of basic knowledge that you can tell our listeners? Hey, we want to be reminded because this isn't. It's hotter than our used to hot.
Yeah, I think every 30 years, the National Weather Service will release kind of a new climate baseline for us, right? And that came out a couple of years ago, I believe. And generally for Houston, no surprise, our average temperatures in the spring, the summer, the winter, and the fall all went up a little bit for the morning lows and the afternoon highs. So I know, it's all the time, we're in the newsroom talking about stories and the impact of the heat, and it's hot. We get it, right? It's Texas. We live along the Gulf Coast. It is hot weather. But then again, we have these heat advisories and extreme heat warnings for a reason, right? For people to really consider how the heat, mitigate around the heat, plan around the heat, how that could impact your day. And by the end of this week, we could likely see some heat advisories issued. The threshold for that specifically is for most of the region in Southeast Texas. So as a whole, for us to see a heat index value or a feels like temperature of 108 plus for an extended amount of the afternoon. And by the end of this week, when it is a little more humid and we have triple digit weather, we'll likely start to see some of those heat advisories issued on the daily.
And we've probably already hit on this, but I'll ask it again. The humidity or the dry heat, is that going to make a difference in what we're feeling and what kind of heat are we expecting?
It does. It actually really does. And this was a point of conversation yesterday in the newsroom, where yesterday we had dew point temperatures in the 60s. So that's somewhat how we help to measure condensation and humidity in the air is with the dew point temperature. And I was actually doing like a happy dance on the 3 o'clock news because we had dew point temperatures in the 60s. That is rare for Houston to see that, but that was brought with the heat dome. So it's kind of a give and take here. And unfortunately, as this heat dome moves farther to the west, that's going to bring back that Gulf moisture and humidity that we know and accommodate here in Southeast Texas. So when it is more humid and we have the same temperatures, the heat index or the impact of the heat is going to be higher than if we had dry air and or lower dew point temperatures and the same outdoor air temperature at the same time. So that maybe yesterday, if you were up early in the morning and you went outside and it felt nice outside, it's because it wasn't as humid. But this morning, if you were up early, I know I was, you can definitely tell that it was feeling a little more humid outside. So that's going to make it feel even hotter in the afternoon.
Elise, quickly, before we let you go, I'm always concerned, how are we looking with hurricane season? Are we going to be okay, do you think, at this point? How's it looking?
Yeah, so right now, over the next 2 to 3 weeks, everything's looking pretty good. We have Saharan dust, also some wind shear across the Caribbean and the Gulf. Saharan dust in the deep tropics that's really limiting these tropical waves from doing anything or organizing. It is seasonal. We are seeing clusters of thunderstorms move off the west coast of Africa. That is actually to be expected this time of year, entering the peak of hurricane season. But as of right now, our latest outlook keep us pretty good in the Gulf. Of course, things can change day to day. That's something we know. The one thing that I am concerned about right now, and something we're starting to talk about, is the flash drought outlook was just released today for the state of Texas. So with this heat dome overhead over the next 2 weeks, portions of Southeast Texas could potentially see drought conditions settle in pretty quickly by the end of the month as a result of this heat dome and limited moisture and limited rainfall over the next 7 to 10 days.
At least you could have ended on a positive note, and then you had to go to the drought. We were doing so well.
You know what? I'm sorry, but I will add a comment. I did tune in when y'all were talking about sound baths. And as a yogi, I've been to a couple of sound baths before, and absolutely, if you go to a good one, it will change your day.
Thank you, Elise.
I will leave it on a positive note. With
See,
that. Absolutely.
She knows. It's going to be nice and humid, too, when I'm laying down for the sound bath.
Elise Smith is the KTRK meteorologist who is joining us right now. Thank you very much for the updates, and stay in touch.
Of course. So stay cool, everybody.
Thank you. I think that's the best advice. Stay cool, everybody. Yeah, and just be aware. It's going to be hot, so do those precautions you need. Stay hydrated. Stay in AC. If you don't have AC, remember the city does offer and the county offers cooling centers. Find out where they are, when they're open. Look now, because if the drain is on the energy system and your computers go down so you can't check, make sure you have a plan. Just know what you need if you need it.
Kind of play it like a game, right? Like it's traffic. I kind of play the heat like it's traffic. Okay, got something to do, get it done in the early mornings. If you can help it or you know a cool space, I mean, most workplaces are air conditioned. That's a huge blessing. Hey, do some extra work, stay in late until some of that heat subsides.
A lot of our advice would be to stay inside, stay out of the weather. But there's something going on that excites you when it comes to Big Bend and the changes happening there. And I mean excites you, and it's got your cackles up.
It's definitely. U.S. Customs and Border Protection Commissioner Rodney Scott said Monday that he was pausing all construction activity in Big Bend National Park ahead of a visit to the area this week. So the Trump administration has faced a growing public outcry in recent days over images of bulldozers and other heavy machinery clearing land inside the sprawling West Texas park in pursuit of its plan to build new patrol roads across the park and install 17 miles of steel vehicle barriers. In a video posted to social media, Scott said he had ordered the construction paused on Sunday night and that he was en route to the park for a personal evaluation to talk with local law enforcement and other stakeholders. So for months, locals and activists have opposed this work. I myself have signed a couple of petitions, but people have remained concerned about current plans for the park, which would amount to widespread construction project unconstrained by federal regulations. The Trump administration in June waived many environmental laws that would typically apply to such construction in a national park. Southwest Valley Constructors, a subsidiary of Nebraska-based construction giant Kiewit, was awarded a $1.7 billion contract in May for the Big Bend National Park project. I know I have thoughts on the construction pause, but if you do, you can call or text 713-440-8870.
I mean, my first thought, too, in all of this, besides all of the significant, important stuff, the weird little thing that bothers me in all this, why did they give it to a Nebraska-based company? Why not a Texas company?
Keep
Just
it
to start there.
At the very least, keep it local.
If you're building opportunity for funding of something, it should be local. But
I don't
outside of that, I don't think they should be doing any of this at all.
Right. So nature for me has always been a happy place, and Big Bend is on one of my lists of national parks to visit. I've never quite made it out there.
Really?
Really. And I've been to other big national parks and stuff, but this one's ours. And what happened to Don't Mess with Texas? What happened to, protecting our wildlife? What happened to God's country? All those things that, make Texans beam with pride. This is such a sacred place to me, and I know to environmentalists, and it's rich in important local wildlife. This is one of the stories that kind of, it does get my blood boiling to see heavy machinery on this beautiful piece of land that has been assigned. I mean, this contract has been sold you don't get the land back. Once you excavate it and do all this stuff, it's such a detriment, I think, to one of the great things, one of the true nature gems of Texas.
Couple things that bother me in what you read also. When Scott said that they're going to pause all construction, yet up until that point, the entire administration was saying there was no construction happening there. It was infrastructure, but it turns out it is construction. They're pausing that. I don't like the idea of putting in patrol roads. I definitely do not like this idea of 17 miles of steel barrier, because we're talking a lot of it is about immigration and concern about the border. It has been proven that it's not a place where crossings happen.
There are natural valleys. Yeah. There are natural constraints that the land has. If you go to Big Bend, if you go there, people will prepare you. If you brought all the supplies and we're trying to stay there comfortably, what it would take. This is not an area. I don't think the risk is worth. I think there's very little reward. Yeah. It's giving Fern Gully. Okay?
713-440-8870. Dan is on the line from OST University. Dan, what's on your mind about this?
Well, my concern obviously is for the national park, but a deeper concern is this ongoing just disregarding laws, ignoring judges, ignoring decisions that are made in advance for a reason, and then coming in and just blowing them all off one after the other. And it's just not with the national parks and that. But I think it's a further points to this administration just ignoring law. Ignoring the laws.
Yeah, President Theodore Roosevelt was the most famous conservation president. Who protected roughly 230 million acres of public land. He's the one establishing parks and stuff. So why did the rules not apply here? Why are those protections going to say, okay, we're just going to disregard it? It feels like our beautiful resources are just, if you've got the money, you can have the land.
Yeah. Dan, thank you for calling and sharing what I think is the opinion of a lot of people who are listening right now. Yes, what bothers me, what you were just saying, is the Trump administration waiving many environmental laws. These laws were put on the books for a reason, to protect something that's dear to us. Like you said, you can't rebuild a park. You can't change nature once you've altered it.
It's not a partisan issue. We all enjoy nature.
We do. Let's enjoy it. Some more than others, but let's enjoy it. Let's not just build walls through our parks. I've been there. PBS was doing Texas Ranch House, I think was the name of the series, and I got to go out to Big Bend and spend a few days there. And let me tell you, it's unlike anything I'd ever experienced, and just so beautiful. And I'm not a nature person.
There you go.
By nature, and I was moved by it. Anyway, I hope you'll be not moved away from this show, but will be moved by the topics. When we come back, we're going to take a look at something that's very important, especially with all these sunny days. Melanoma, you got to be careful, you got to protect your skin. We're going to find out about treatments that are going on and what's new on the horizon as Hello Houston continues.
We know you value Houston Public Media. That's why you're watching right now. So take the next step and become a new member of the station you rely on. Every gift makes a difference. And what matters most right now is supporting the station that brings you the news and information you rely on. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. So join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
More info at WIH.org.
Support comes from Houston Theater Week, a citywide celebration of live performances. Participating organizations include theater, dance, and music presenters. Returning August 24th through the 30th. Tickets at HoustonTheaterWeek.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from attorney mediator Ron Bankston, providing in-person, video conference, and hybrid mediation and arbitration services. More information is available at ronbankston.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from St. Luke's Health. St. Luke's Health is becoming Common Spirit, a new name, with the same trusted care and commitment to the Houston community. Learn more at commonspirit.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing safety. More at texasmutual.com/TexansGetIt.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Tessa Barrera and Ernie Manouse.
Welcome back to Hello Houston, everyone. Melanoma treatment has changed significantly in recent years with new therapies and clinical research offering more options for patients. At the forefront of that work is the Melanoma Medical Oncology Department at UTMD Anderson Cancer Center, where researchers are studying new ways to treat melanoma and improve outcomes for patients. Joining us today is Dr. Michael Davies. He's the chair of the Department of Melanoma Medical Oncology at MD Anderson. We'll discuss the latest advances in melanoma therapies and the research currently taking place with Dr. Davies. Thank you so much for joining us on Hello Houston.
Thank you so much for having me today. As a Houston local, very empathetic to all the warnings you just gave about heat and humidity, and just would add to your warnings, not just keep cool, not just keep hydrated, but keep yourself protected from the sun as well.
Yes, sunscreen. What SPF should we be actually using?
It's a really great question. You know, when you go back and look at the data, it's sort of hard to actually say, well, this is the exact amount of SPF that you need. I mean, I think, you know, when we talk not only to patients, but also educational programs that we've developed for children, we've really talked about trying to avoid sun exposure in those peak part of the days when the sun is at its most intense. Using sunscreen, I think the idea is that you probably want to be using at least an SPF 30, but it's not enough to put it on once a day. It's something that has to be reapplied about every 2 to 3 hours to really give yourself protection.
I heard somewhere that as a moisturizer, your skin moisturizer, you should just use a sunscreen at an SPF 30, and that will moisten your skin and also protect you. So it's a great catch-all.
I have to say it's one of the things. So I'm the head of the Department of Melanoma Medical Oncology. I'm a medical oncologist who's usually taking care of the patients who've been diagnosed with cancer. My colleagues in dermatology are the ones who are really at the cutting edge of things. I will say there's a lot of interesting things happening in terms of skin protection and really sort of new, more sort of pleasant, less sort of toxic-like skin ways to protect your skin. Certainly skin protective clothing being another sort of tool we have to reduce the risk of skin cancer as well.
And that actually was not the reason we brought you on to talk about skincare
Exactly.
today, but to talk about melanoma. And I think all too often people who are not well versed in this take it for granted. Oh, you got a little skin, you have it cut out and move on. But that this is really serious and people should be paying more attention.
Yeah, and you know, I really appreciate the chance to come and talk on your show today. You know, the data is that each year over 5 million cases of skin cancer are diagnosed in the United States. The most common forms of skin cancer that are diagnosed by far are basal cell carcinoma, which is over 60% of the cancers that are diagnosed, and squamous cell carcinoma, which is over 30%. So really, 95% of the cancers are represented by basal cell carcinoma and squamous cell carcinomas, which actually, again, are almost always cured just with surgical removal. It's very rare for those cancers to spread. It's very rare for those things to have impact on the duration of life for patients. Melanoma is quite different. So melanoma, fortunately, is a minority of the skin cancers that are diagnosed each year. It's 5% of all skin cancers, a little over 200,000 cases. But as you said, melanoma is quite different. This is the cancer that has the highest risk of spreading to other places of the body. And when we actually look at patients who have died of skin cancer, almost 90% of them, what they had was melanoma. And so this is by far the most lethal form of skin cancer, and one that you're absolutely right, something we don't take lightly when we make that diagnosis.
When you talk about it killing people, is it because of the skin cancer, or is it the spread to things like, which I was surprised to learn how easily it spreads to the brain?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, when people are dying from melanoma, it's because it's spread to other parts of the body. And, you know, one of the things said in many different types of cancer, we talk about that cancer spreads to like one particular place. Like prostate cancer is known to spread to lymph nodes and bone. Breast cancer will spread really to sort of lungs and liver. What is infamous about melanoma is the fact that it can spread anywhere in the body. And honestly, when we talk about other cancers and we have our staging systems where we start to talk about, well, when does the cancer start to have an increased risk of spreading, we're measuring those tumors in centimeters. In melanoma, we recognize there's a significant risk in the cancer spreading when it gets more than 1 millimeter thick. So it's always been a cancer that, even though it looks sort of small and underwhelming many times when you detect it, it really is sort of a unique biology and uniquely aggressive in its ability to spread everywhere. And as you said, in particular, really among all of the common solid tumors, has the highest risk of spreading to the brain of any of our cancer types.
We are speaking with Dr. Michael Davies. He's the chair of the Department of Melanoma Medical Oncology at UT MD Anderson Cancer Center. If you'd like to get in on the conversation, you can call 713-440-8870. Dr. Davies, once patients have their diagnosis, there have often been times where their options are maybe limited. This is an exciting time, though, for you to talk about new treatments and new options for people that have received this devastating diagnosis.
Absolutely. And again, I'm going to focus first really on talking about that most advanced stage of melanoma, when melanoma has spread from the skin to distant parts of the body. This is what we call stage 4 melanoma. And before I get into any numbers, any details, the one sort of message that I want people to know is that this is now curable. That was not always the case, but now it is. So when I was going through my training here in Houston, and particularly at MD Anderson Cancer Center, melanoma was on the big 3 list of cancers not to get, because this is a cancer that doesn't respond to chemotherapy, which is the treatments we used to use for all types of cancer. Again, really just poison that we hope poison the cancer faster than it poisoned the rest of the body. And so originally, for patients with metastatic melanoma, we talked about if you were diagnosed with stage 4 disease, the average survival for patients was between 6 to 10 months. And as a cancer that often affects patients who are young and healthy, what we really are interested in is not just about what the averages is, but how many patients are long-term survivors? How many patients can we actually cure? And so back when I started my career, again, the average survival was 6 to 10 months, the long-term survival rates, and we use that starting at sort of 5 years of survival, was really less than 5%. What's been so revolutionary is that while this cancer, again, is very highly resistant to chemotherapy, we get all the side effects, but we don't really get long-term benefits. On the other hand, this is the cancer that's been the poster child for how much immunotherapy can really change the course of a cancer like melanoma. And so while melanoma is very resistant to chemotherapy, it's very sensitive to immune therapies. And these are treatments that work by boosting the body's own immune system to attack the cancer. You know, our immune system, we've always thought of it there to fight infections as being something that isn't supposed to be there, but the immune system can also fight cancer. And so one of the biggest trials that we did in patients with stage 4 melanoma, where we were testing 3 different kinds of immune therapy, about a year ago, we started to see data where we now had 10 years of follow-up from patients who had started treatment on that clinical trial. And when we look at actually very specifically what was their chance of being alive 10 years later, that number was now almost 40 to 50%. And so going from less than 5% at 5 years to close to 50% at 10 years sort of shows how far that we've come. And as you mentioned, whereas, again, before 2011, we had 0 treatments that were actually approved based on the fact that they could improve survival in patients with stage 4 melanoma. Just recently, we had our 16th treatment approved for patients with stage 4 melanoma based on the fact that it can improve overall survival in these patients. And remarkably, not a single one of those treatments is chemotherapy. It's been a mix of these immune therapies and other medicines that we call targeted therapies that hopefully we can talk about as well.
I want to get to those in a minute. Before we get into those, though, and I don't know, this is not your research and it's not from your folks' organization, but there has been some big news about a skin patch that supposedly has a microneedle patch. It's a skin patch for non-invasive skin tumor treatment that has shown a lot of early positive results as being, I guess, and I'm going to describe it poorly, I'm sure, a patch that has these micro needles that have carbon, and when heated up, it affects just the cell that's cancerous for melanoma and skin cancer. Have you heard anything on this? And are these new technologies also what we're looking at to get it before it gets all the way up to a stage 4?
No, and it's a really great question. And I have to admit, it's one of these things, as we'll talk about, there's so many things happening. It's hard to keep up with all of them. And so that approach specifically, I'm not aware, but it sounds like something that's designed to sort of act locally. And again, there really is a lot of research going on how we could, again, do a better job of taking care of that melanoma in the skin, not only to prevent it from coming back, but sort of new ways to take care of those tumors that are perhaps less invasive and less morbid. But in terms of, again, thinking about how we sort of treat the cancer when it's spread to other places in the body, that approach sounds like a local approach as opposed to an approach that would treat the whole body. So something I have to admit, not as familiar with.
So when we talk about it spreading and you go in with immunotherapies to attack this cancer, do you have a breaking point where it has spread too far, too quickly, or can any cancer be effectively, when it comes to melanoma and this work you're doing, is there any point where you can jump into this and find benefit?
Yeah, so just as an example, so what we, again, initially saw when we were using our treatments in the past is that we talked about, well, we could get tumors to shrink in the skin or the lymph nodes or even the lung. But when it gets to the brain, those treatments don't work. That's not the case for immunotherapy. My colleague, Dr. Hussein Tabi, who works down the hall, led the big clinical trial that showed that one of our immunotherapy combinations could actually result in durable responses and durable survival, even when the cancer had spread to the brain, again, using these immune systems that work by boosting the immune cells to fight the cancer. And so it used to be that the final frontier was really if cancer spread to the brain. That was something where, again, our treatments either didn't work or didn't get there. But now, even when cancer spreads to the brain, it is curable.
Wow, that's fabulous. We're also inviting you to join the conversation at 713-440-8870. Aga from West Houston is on the line. Aga, what's on your mind today?
Yes, hi. Thank you for taking my call, and I would like to thank the doctor for sharing the exciting information. I'm a practicing physician, and I also train at MD Anderson and UT McGill School of Medicine, and I'm really excited about new developments. My question to you is the following. Do you think the recent cuts to National Institute of Health and funding of research will have negative impact in future research? Because medicine has progressed tremendously. When I was a resident at UT McGowan School of Medicine, the major breakthrough was insulin in a form of a pen called Lantus. Now we have variety of different treatments, not just for diabetes, but extending people's lives and reducing cardiovascular risk, weight, and so forth. Do you think it will have negative impact for the future research, the fund cuts?
Thank you for that, Aga,
Yes.
Doctor. Oh, a simple answer, yes.
That's a very straightforward one. That's a yes. So we have already seen the impact on those funding cuts. Again, all of the treatments that have really helped us to advance the care and outcomes for patients with melanoma have been driven by research. They didn't happen at random. They really sort of took research to understand how cancer grows, how the immune system is regulated, how we can sort of use that information to convert that into new treatments that make patients live longer. And we know that the cuts in funding are absolutely having impact on the research that's the foundation for all the advances that we've been able to make for patients. So I absolutely the recent trends, I think, again, are really worrying many of us about sort of, again, how we're going to maintain the progress that we've made over the last 15 years.
Dr. Michael Davies, you're the chair of the Department of Melanoma Medical Oncology at UT/MD Anderson Cancer Center. We've been chatting about the new options available. Do you find it fascinating that the research has lent itself for us to go inward instead of outward on the body? Is there anything that we can do as everyone is aging and the summers are getting hotter and the sun feels brighter than ever? What are there any holistic things that we can do as to prevent melanoma?
Yeah, no. So you bring up it's a wonderful question, and again, for my whole career, patients have always come and asked me, well, what can I do? We patients want to get better, and they've really been looking for what they can do to make themselves better. And so just one of the examples of the type of research that we've done, and really, again, one of the world's leaders in this is Dr. Jennifer Wargo, who works at MD Anderson, and a lot of this was translated into the clinic and for patients by my former colleague, Dr. Jennifer McQuaid. As we tried to learn from patients who are getting immune therapy, again, we're very happy about the fact that we say we're nearing sort of cure rates of 40 to 50%. Well, that means we're halfway there. And so the question that we would always be asking is not only why are some patients doing well, but why are other patients not doing as well? And one of the really surprising findings that we had was actually that there were differences in the gut microbiome, basically the bacteria that we have in our intestines and really in our bowel movements. And what we saw first here at MD Anderson was that when we looked at patients who had responded to immunotherapy for their metastatic melanoma, if we looked at their stool microbiome, the responders overall had a higher diversity, more different species of bacteria in their gut microbiome than the non-responders. And as much as we were excited to see this, what has really been sort of really nice to see is that this has been reproduced by investigators at many other centers around the world, not only for melanoma, but for other cancer types. And so really suggesting that a diversity of the microbiome is a really positive thing. So what's interesting about this is that really sort of spurred a lot of interest in probiotics. And what we saw actually is when you take probiotics is you get a lot of very few bacteria, and that doesn't have the positive effect that we're looking for of this diversity of the microbiome. Again, if we ever found that one bacteria that made our cancer treatments work better, that's what we develop a probiotic out of, but we don't have that. So what we really want to do for our patients is to really increase the diversity of the microbiome, both to make immunotherapy work better, and it also seems to make it safer. And the best way to achieve that is through a high fiber diet. And so we've actually been running multiple different clinical trials here at MD Anderson, looking at different diets and the impact that those can have on the gut microbiome and the safety and effectiveness of immune therapy. And again, my former colleague, Dr. Jennifer McQuaid, led a number of these studies. The initial results look very promising and very exciting, and so we continue to do research in this area. But you know, as you said, when patients ask, what can I do? It's clear that what we eat makes a difference. And I have to say, somewhat fortunately, this isn't about dramatic weight loss. This isn't about huge amounts of exercise. This is really about what it is that we eat. And, hopefully there'll be more things that we find in the future. But for right now, a high fiber diet seems to be something that actually can really help patients, strengthening their immune system and protecting them against or helping them to fight their cancer.
Well, fiber feels like the new protein. Dr. Davies, thank you so much for joining us today on Hello Houston. Dr. Michael Davies is the chair of the Department of Melanoma Medical Oncology at UTMD Anderson Cancer Center. Coming up, a local sculptor tells us about her latest book full of hidden things. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross-country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
HPM Plus brings you the latest news and information from around the world and across the street. Trusted journalists keeping you connected by keeping you informed. Search HPM Plus on your smart and connected TVs and stay informed.
President Trump's frequent tariff announcements have put global trade in a new precarious position.
We would all be better off if we were not in a trade war.
Why tariffs push up prices and how countries around the globe are adapting. That's next time on Think.
You can listen to Think tonight at 11 o'clock.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. With over 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from St. Luke's Health. St. Luke's Health is becoming Common Spirit, a new name, with the same trusted care and commitment to the Houston community. Learn more at commonspirit.org.
And now Now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call or text 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now Tessa Barrera and Ernie Manouse.
Many of the most famous works of art are known to contain hidden details or symbols that casual observers and art appreciators spent countless hours trying to uncover. Well, here in the Houston area, there's an interactive bronze sculpture in a corner of Evelyn's Park in Bel Air that conceals 150 hidden secrets within itself. That being the sculpture Move One Place On, which is inspired by one of the most well-known stories in literature, Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And now the local artist behind the sculpture, Bridgette Mongeon, has written a book which features hints and riddles to help visitors uncover all 150 of the sculpture's hidden treasures, called Alice and the Hidden 150. She joins us now to tell us more about the book, the sculpture, the 150 secrets. Welcome to Hello Houston.
Thanks for having me. It's so much fun to be back.
It's good to talk to you again.
It's been years, yes.
I guess the first thing that's fun to me is you didn't just publish a list of the 150 things embedded within your sculpture.
Right.
You wrote a book, stories, encouraging. Well, you explain it. You did it.
Well, I wanted to. Somebody asked me for a list. I said, I'm not giving you a list. I want to encourage curiosity. And I want to encourage literacy. So you really have to know your Lewis Carroll. You have to know what is going on to get this 150. And I have to tell you, some people have found things that I didn't know I had.
That is incredible. And you know what? In a world of immediate gratification and Googling instantly your answers, I think this is a special type of dopamine that people don't give themselves the opportunity to access enough. Why is it so important that you said, no, be a seeker and this is the way you can find it? Why were you so headstrong about that?
Because I am a bibliophile and I love literature and I love kids' curiosities. Once, even the adults go in there and they see something, they go, oh my gosh, and there's something over here, and there's something over here. But the thing is that each one of those things means something. Now, you have a hidden thing.
She's pointing at Ernie.
I'm pointing it at Ernie, yes. Because I was watching. Tell us about your pillow. I wish
Ernie,
almost told you to bring your pillow.
To the statue, to the sculpture.
I would have loved to have seen that pillow.
Okay. So, well, first of all, before I get to that part of it, explain what we're talking about. This is a giant bronze, larger than life,
monumental sculpture of Alice in Wonderland's Mad Hatter Tea Party. So there's the Mad Hatter and Alice and the Cheshire Cat. And you can actually bring your lunch and go and sit down at this table and have a meal.
Right.
And I'm amazed that so many people in Houston don't know that this is in our city.
Because it's one of the best pieces of public art in this entire town, and not just because I have a part of it, but it's.
But that is part of it. Part of the part.
Well, it's wonderful because it's interactive. You can be part of the art, and so if you've never seen it in Evelyn's Park, please go there and see it. It's actually spectacular. It's really so cool. We have it. So in doing it, you looked and crafted and created something that wasn't just Alice in Wonderland, but was so much more, and you found inspiration all over. I had a TV show called Manner of Speaking, which came on after Downton Abbey, and a lot of people for many years have talked about the big old chair that I sat in when I hosted the show. In that chair behind me was this pillow that was the back of the chair, just a pillow to us. You saw it. And you were like, I love that pillow.
I love that pillow.
Your eyes lit up just when he mentioned the pillow.
I want to see your pillow. I've never been emotionally attached to a pillow before.
Well, because you have a history with that pillow, because then you came in, you took pictures of the pillow, you asked if you could take pictures, and it is the pillow in the big chair in the sculpture.
It is the pillow that Alice sits against. And then I had to make 2 of those pillows for my house.
Yes. So and for folks that know, when the show ended, when our show ended, Manner of Speaking, and our station manager, Josh, was like, okay, I am not storing this set again. I have to store it every year, and it costs so much money. It's going away. And I was like, can I have the furniture? And they let me take home the furniture.
Pillow.
I still sit in that big chair, and that pillow is still behind me in my own home when I watch TV.
You're just like Alice.
I'm just like
Just
Alice
leaning on it.
But that is just one. one. Now, I don't know. Is that one of the 150? Or
That
not?
is one of them.
Okay.
See, and you wouldn't know that unless you knew this story, and unless you read the book, then you don't
wouldn't
know what
it.
that is.
I didn't know if like it was all other things, and that's just something we know that's in there. But it's one of the 150. So there's 149 other moments, inspirations, curiosities that you have crafted into this sculpture.
Right, and it might not be something that you physically find. It might be that there's an error. Because actually, I spoke at the Lewis Carroll Society. They said, "What if we find an error?" I said, "That's part of the 150 then." But also within the books, that like the Tennell illustration, the original illustrator and Lewis Carroll, there were errors in that, and so I kind of played on those as well. And then it's also the personal things, like you read that book and you know that the face is the face of my deceased brother-in-law for the Mad Hatter. So that would be one of the 150. If it is in the story, then you need to know where it is in the story. So get your Alice in Wonderland books and the second book, Through the Looking Glass, and then you need to know where it is in the story. So that where it's located is part of that 150.
Wow.
So it becomes this
cross-referencing, like a treasure hunt,
It is.
actually. And I think for
It is.
genuinely curious people or people who are trying to keep whimsy in their life,
That's a great word for it.
It's get more whimsy, more whimsical, and have fun with it. I do want to say that Bridgette Mongeon's previous works, include the famous tiger sculpture at Grambling State University, that's in Louisiana, the Prairie View Panther, and you have life-size sculptures everywhere. But this one's really special to you, so much so that you've designed this journey for readers and Houstonians to go and discover. You must do more than love the book. What has this shown you about yourself?
Well, I love the idea that I kind of feel like the whole project, because the project was installed in 2018, it's been there for a while. I kind of feel like everything's been renewed, like it's got a new life. But then also I'm sharing, it's kind of like my memoir, what my daughter said in the memoir, that I wrote a memoir prior to this. And it's just, I'm sharing part of myself that you get like an inner look, an inner peek into, and it shares it with the rest of the world. One of the other aspects of, and I didn't even realize, because I was writing the memoir, there is a white queen. And if you look at the Tennell illustration, Alice is fixing the hair, and the white queen's all disheveled, and she's fixing the hair of the white queen. And I went, I love this image. So I actually had a 3D face of my mother. So I put my mother's face on the white queen. And it wasn't until I was writing the memoir, talk about buried in your subconscious. I was talking to my daughter on the phone. I just began to cry. And she says, "What are you crying about?" I said, "It's my mother." She said, "Well, yeah, I know it's your mother." I said, "No, it's my mother's," I'm going to cry, "first time she went to AA." And I went, holy cow. Wow. So when I say there's stuff in this thing, there's stuff in this thing.
Deeply personal.
Yeah, personal.
To stay within the art and the crafting of the art, when you first decide you're going to make this sculpture, when does it start becoming something that you embed on top of? Or is that there from the beginning? When you start thinking and seeking things out, how early on in the process do you want to do that? Or is that the finishing nuances of it?
Well, it's interesting because this was a project where I could actually add things to it. Most of the time it's a commissioned piece of art. Mm-hmm. And I hid so many tiny mice in that sculpture. And if you notice, I have a mouse who is my co-author. And Curie kept saying, "Let's hide a mouse in this new sculpture." So when I did another sculpture, we did hide a mouse in that sculpture. So I don't get to do that. This was the gem of the gems. I'd really like to do now. I'd like to do Winnie the Pooh. There's like 3 scenes of Winnie the Pooh, because then again I get to be free with my creativity and do whatever I want to do.
Did you set out knowing it would be 150, or at the end of the day you looked and you're like, oh my, I have 150 things in here?
No, the 150 is because of the 150th anniversary of the story. So I needed to make sure that I had 150.
And you said other people have discovered more. I think it's so fun when it's an inside joke between the creator, the artist, and the common person walking by. It feels like you discovered something on your own. This book is called Alice and the Hidden 150. The sculpture itself is in Bel Air, where you can also have a great meal and you can go enjoy it. This is a huge, huge sculpture. I mean, can you put in perspective for people listening in the size of this?
I think my studio is 9 feet, and it also talks about how I created it.
Right.
So you get to hear a little bit about the process, because one of the things is I cross the line between 3D tech and fine art. So CNC milling and 3D printing, et cetera, et cetera. So when I did this, I could take the head off the Mad Hatter and work on him separately. But every time we take it off, it would hit the ceiling. So I still got those marks on my ceiling.
Any idea how much it weighs?
It's in the book.
Oh, okay. We'll check it in the book,
Ernie.
Definitely read the book. The book is Alice and the Hidden 150. Bridgette Mongeon is a Houston-based sculptor and educator, and just a joy to have around. Good to see you again.
Thank you so much for having me. And go see it. Hey, you know what? October 6th is Mad Hatter Day. Because that's what is in his hat. I think we should start doing a celebration there.
We should do it
Perfect.
there.
Perfect.
Okay, unfortunately, we are out of time on today's show. So thank you all for joining us. Tessa, great to talk with you today.
Fun
See you back
stuff.
here tomorrow, along with all of you. And Jen Rice from Democracy Docket will be one of our guests. Don't miss us. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menivar, Laura Walker, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, Jayla Rhodes, Mark DeClaudio, Tom Carter, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a workers' compensation provider committed to helping Texas communities and emphasizing